And joining me now is Tania Hary, the Executive Director of Gisha, Legal Center for Freedom of Movement. It's an Israeli NGO founded in 2005 with the goal of protecting the rights and freedoms of Palestinians, particularly those in Gaza. Thank you so much for being here with us. And so your NGO has joined with other human rights organizations to petition Israel's High Court to allow more aid to Gaza. So explain why you're taking this action and the legal basis for this.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. So, Israeli officials keep saying that they're not blocking aid to Gaza when in effect they are. They're mounting obstacles both on the inspection process and also on the distribution of aid within Gaza. And really since the beginning, since October 7th and after the really horrific attacks by Hamas and others on Israelis, aid has been used as a weapon of war. It's being used to pressure, to punish the civilian population. And the most significant obstacle that we're seeing on the distribution of aid is lack of safety, problems with what's called the deconfliction process. So that's allowing humanitarian convoys to travel through the strip safely. We're seeing aid being systematically denied to the north of Gaza, where some 300,000 people are now in the most catastrophic stages of hunger. And they might already even be facing famine. So Gisha is leading a coalition of organizations in Israel, and we're basically calling on Israel's High Court to order the Israeli government, the prime minister, the defense minister, the army, to enable all access of humanitarian aid that includes equipment, that includes staff. We're calling on them even to open more crossings, land crossings between Israel and Gaza, and to take on their responsibility as an occupying power.
So these accusations that Israel isn't allowing enough aid in, as you say, they've been met by denials by the Israeli government. And they also say that the health information is inaccurate, that people aren't starving. And second of all, that it's Hamas that's stealing all the food. Any truth to either of those assertions by Israel?
Yeah, I'm afraid not. If you look at the landscape right now, the world's foremost experts on the question of famine have issued now two seminal reports on the situation. All of the humanitarian organizations working on the ground, the UN, of course, Palestinians themselves in Gaza are telling us they don't have enough food to eat. There's not enough medicine, medical equipment, staff in the hospitals. The health system is on the verge of collapse. Actually, most of the hospitals aren't functioning. You only have about 10 hospitals out of 36 partially functioning right now. And to meet the devastating claim or the devastating reality of famine, you're going to need a multi-sector response. It's not just about food. It's about water. It's about medical equipment. It's about staff. It's about providing medical services to children who are already suffering from severe malnutrition. So these claims that, Hamas is stealing the aid, look, of course, there are problems with people taking aid. That's a phenomenon that's known around the world. But what we're looking at is really a simple numbers issue. It's math. It's basic math. What we've seen is that in the last 6 months, the amount of aid that has come in is barely scratching the surface of what would come in a normal month. So really, these claims are not founded, and it's really a simple math issue. There's just simply not enough to go around.
Right. Beyond the government's denials of the problem, there are large-scale efforts from some journalists, commentators, people online to deny that there's any famine in Gaza in the first place. But, broadly, is there support in Israel itself for Palestinians on this issue specifically? Do they know the extent of the suffering in Gaza?
So that's a really great question. And, one of the reasons why we filed this petition in the High Court is because we think there needs to be more discussion inside of Israel about what's happening. And, I have to say, frankly, I'm not terribly optimistic about our chances in the court. I'm still hopeful that the justices will see the case for what it is and rule in our favor. But I do think what's important about this case is that it should spark more dialogue within Israel about what's happening. You know, Israelis are really living the horrors of October 7th over and over again. People are watching their own suffering night after night on the news. And unfortunately, we're not seeing enough images. We're not given enough information about what's happening in Gaza. And I know that must be hard for people around the world to understand, but really, you know, we're really focused on our own situation as Israelis. And so I think that needs to change. And I think that, you know, even if Israelis do see the suffering, of course, they're told it's Hamas's fault. And from our perspective, of course, Hamas has a role to play in this. The international community has a role to play. But as Israelis, it's important to us that we take responsibilities for the choices that Israel has made in fighting this war. And for the red lines, we think it's already crossed and that it's likely to cross if this continues.
We'll leave it on that point. Tania Hary, thank you so much for speaking with us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.